Hello everyone. Before starting the lesson, try this warm-up. Sort the following functions into two groups. So look at the list of functions here and find two main distinctions between them and sort these into groups. See what you come up with. So pause the video and try it. Well, here's the two main groups. The red ones have x squared in them. The blue ones don't. So we can see that there is a defining characteristic in all of the functions that are similar. X squared is a similar characteristics in these three functions, and just having an x is the similar characteristic in these three functions, the blue ones. We're going to use this idea of similar characteristics in this lesson. The lesson is called parent functions. So we're going to classify functions according to their family and identify the parent function. So we'll talk about what all that means. Functions that share common characteristics are called a family. So just like you might have siblings, you and your siblings have what we call a family resemblance. You share similar characteristics. The same is true for functions. The simplest function in a family is called the parent function. So just like you and your siblings will have the same parents that you both came from, when we talk about functions, if they're in the same family, they have the same parent. So here's my first example. I see a bunch of functions all on one grid. Now, what do they have in common? It's the shape. They're all lines. So what do we call graphs of lines? What kind of function is that? What's the family name, as it were? Linear. It's in the name. Line. Functions that are linear have a line as their graph. So all of these different functions, there's 4 of them on the graph, they're all in the same family. They're all linear. Now, what is the parent function? That's the simplest function equation. The simplest equation of a line is y equals x. So that would be the parent function. That's this green one right here. So a parent function is the simplest function in the family. All other functions in that family are based on the parent function. Here's another set of functions. Now, what family do they belong to? What kind of functions are these? They're quadratic. I know that because they all have the shape of a parabola. A parabola is the shape of a quadratic function. So all these functions are quadratic. That's their family. Now, what is the parent function? What is the simplest function in this family? Well, if you think about quadratic functions, this is the simplest equation. It has to have an x squared in it. So this is the parent function. All other functions in the family are based on this one. These functions are all exponential. We'll talk more about those specifically later in the course, but this is the shape of the graph. They're kind of flattened, and then they increase up and up and up. Flatten, increase, up and up and up. Or you can flip it the other way. This one is flat, and then it decreases, down, down, down. The simplest equation, the parent function, is y equals some number to the exponent x. So every single function that's exponential will have x, the input, as an exponent on some number that's the base. Here I've just used a b to represent a number that goes there. So if you see a graph that has this shape, you know this is an exponential function. Graphs that look like waves that repeat up and down, up and down, up and down, these are called sinusoidal functions. And we will talk more about these later in the course too, but the root is sine. Remember, sine, cosine, tangent? Yep, this is trigonometry. This is what it looks like when you start graphing it. All of the functions in this family share the characteristic that they are a wave pattern. The simplest function is y equals sine x. So all the functions in this family will have sine of x somewhere in the equation. So I've talked about linear functions, quadratic functions, exponential functions, and sinusoidal functions. I'd like you to identify the family and parent function for each of these equations. So pause the video and see if you can identify what family the function belongs to and what the parent function would be. So pause the video and try it. The first one has sine in the equation, so this is sinusoidal. The simplest equation, the parent function, is y equals sine x. This one, you're squaring the x. So this is quadratic, and the parent function is y equals x squared. This one, there's an x, no exponent on it, no sign. The x is not the exponent. This is linear. And the parent function is y equals x. This one, x is in the exponent, so this is an exponential function. And the parent function in this case is y equals 3 to the x. If you wrote y equals b to the x, you're just referring to the previous example where I showed exponential functions, and I had a b as a placeholder for the number that is the base in that power. But for this one, the base is 3, so that's how I knew to put a 3 here. So hopefully you can identify what family a function belongs to and what the parent function is. There's a practice sheet that goes along with this lesson. I'd like you to try it and let me know how it goes. And if you need help, let me know.